Welcome to the 2025 Barrington School District and Town. What is this? No, it's not a deliberative session. That's what I kind of have in mind. Candidate forum. Candidates tonight will have 2 minutes for an opening, and we'll allow 2 minutes for answers to the questions because we don't have a whole lot of people up here as candidates tonight. Candidates are reminded, and audience members that come up to the podium, you need that little green light to be on, so push the button on the microphone so the little green light is on so people can hear you. Tonight, for the school district, there are 2 school board candidates for 3 years, both running unopposed, Carrie Neal and Moira Taylor. Carrie couldn't be here tonight, but Moira bravely volunteered to represent the school board and herself. So if you have questions for her, that will be great. We'll give Moira 2 minutes for an opening statement to tell us why you want to do this.
Thank you, Ron. So I am a strong believer of public education. I am in public education, have worked in public education for over 30 years. And so I see serving on the board as a way to give back to my community, and that's what I have done. I've been on the board for 15 years and served for a short time before that, filling a vacancy. I think I bring a wealth of background knowledge and to the position. I love our town. I've lived here with my husband for 30 years. We raised our 2 boys here. You know, when they were young, we volunteered coaching. My husband was the scoutmaster here in town for many years. So we've always been a family that gives back in our community. And so that's what I would like to continue to do. In my 30 years in public education, I have taught everything from kindergarten to adult education. I tutored at the county jail. So I have a wide background in it. And so, you know, I don't take for granted that there isn't someone running against me. I hope to earn the vote, and I appreciate the support I've had in the past, and I hope to continue to serve the community.
Okay, thank you. For questioners, we hope you'll keep your questions oriented to someone who's on the school board. We've got a lot of national issues. Those aren't something that the school board can do much about. So let's keep our questions relevant to the office that's in contention tonight. So do we have any questioners here? And we'll also be taking questioners online if anybody has one. Matt.
First of all, thank you for running. Yeah, I know the list that can be, even though you've been successful before. My question really has to do with some of the legislation that's coming through having to do with standards and having towns set their own standards and the state eliminating standards, for lack of another word. Could you respond to that and how you propose Barrington deal with that?
Are you speaking to the legislation about defining what an adequate education is?
Yes.
I'm not in support of limiting what an adequate education is. I believe our students need to be exposed to foreign language and art and music. I think our community would continue to support that, but it would be on the backs of the local taxpayers, which I think our state is, if not last, second to last in funding public education. And so I would appreciate if we got more support from Concord rather than less. And I don't believe limiting what we define as an adequate education to just the core subjects is appropriate.
Good. I appreciate your answer.
You, Jack? And if questioners would state your name when you come up, that'd be great.
Jack Gale, Berry River Road. No kids, but concerned about the system. Exactly what are the biggest challenges ahead for the Barrington School District?
I think the biggest challenges are always funding. We've seen some decreases in our federal funds as well for Title I and IDA, so that's a concern. The other concern, as anyone who drives around town, is the growth in town. And so we're closely trying to track how many young inhabitants are in those houses that, the community, when the community built the middle school, they wisely built it big enough that we have some room for growth in the middle school right now. Our elementary school, that is not so true. And so in trying to be prepared, we have started working with some architects to see what could be done, should it need to be done, so we don't get caught unawares. So we're trying to plan for that. And then the other things that are, it's challenging to budget in October and November for a budget that's going to be over a year and a half later. And so some of the things that, we don't have control of is our high school tuition costs. But this year, I think we had 13 high school students that, we didn't know about last fall when we budgeted for this year. And so, we can absorb elementary and middle school age children without a direct cost, but our high school students come with a direct one-on-one cost. And so that can be challenging for us as well. Many years ago, the district would budget in additional high school students as a buffer just to make sure. We don't do that anymore because we have the high school capital reserve, but we just want to make sure that we're trying to be as accurate as possible and as transparent as possible. So those are some of the bigger challenges facing us.
Thank you. Any more questions from here?
Green light. Natalie Tolan Road. So a local private school is able to provide like K through 8th grade. They teach the kids Spanish, Mandarin. They have tons of programs. And I think to educate one of those students, it's only about $13,000 for private tuition. But I think the last time I checked, Barrington, was it like $20,000, $21,000 per student in Barrington? Why is it so much more expensive to educate a public school child compared to the private schools?
Are you speaking for the high school tuitions or our per pupil expenditure is at or below state averages? Some of the reasons why public schools may be more expensive is we have students who have significant special needs, and those costs are incorporated, whereas private schools do not have to accept students with special needs, and they don't have to meet those obligations. So that could be a big contributor. Private schools get to pick and choose, so they don't necessarily have students who may have more significant behavior issues that we have. And these things all come often with the needs for additional staff members, and so that is contributing largely to that.
Any more questions? Great opportunity to get one-on-one time with a school board member. Anybody online that?
I don't see anybody online. If you're online, excuse me. If you're online, you can raise your hand and wait to be called on. I don't see anybody on a phone, but if you do come in on a phone, it's *6 to unmute yourself and speak up to wait to be recognized by the moderator. I don't see anything.
Okay, everybody's eating supper, I guess. All right. Last chance for the school board. You must have something. Oh boy, I guess you're off the hook easy. Oh, there's one. All right, good.
Diane St. Jean, Small Road. Moira, can you speak a little bit about the teacher contract that's on the warrant?
Sure. So, we, years ago, we found that our teachers were significantly underpaid, particularly in this area. So it was very difficult to retain teachers. We could attract young teachers, but when they could leave and go to Dover and make $15,000 more a year, who would blame them? So over the course of the last few contracts, we've really been working towards that. And so we, without making big hits at once, trying to make changes in the salary scale to regulate that out. And so there, one thing we will have to work with the union on in the fall is health insurance, because we did not get, it varies in the fall of when we get what the new rate will be. And so it came in after kind of negotiations had completed. So we'll work with them in the fall to come up with hopefully is comparable insurance and with a reduced cost. But, you know, there are some other things in there about planning times and things that will allow for the district to have what are called professional learning communities, like PLC meetings during the school day and things. So there's some great things happening in that agreement. And so I hope the community comes out and supports it. I know that when the superintendent, she did a process called stay interviews. So she talked to a bunch of staff. And one of the things that came up consistently was that staff members here, whether they live here or don't, feel very supported by our community. And I think that's a great thing. You know, we've been fortunate that the community has come out and supported the budget in their previous contracts. And I would hope that would continue to happen.
Thank you. Time for one more question. Roger?
Roger Gingrich from Peabody Way. Or I'm interested in one of your initial comments, I believe, to Matt's question about state aid to the schools were last or close to the last. I wanted then to contrast that question or that answer to where do New Hampshire students, particularly if you know Barrington students, stand in terms of parity on exams that can be used to tell us how we're doing?
So don't quote me, I can't, like, when I've read it in the past, all of New England tends to do well. And what we find is we have a rigorous statewide assessment system. And so that when our students, their performances on that assessment are comparable to, say, the NAEP, which is how the nation's report card for education. And so in general, New Hampshire does well. Off the top of my head, I'm sorry, Roger, I can't speak to Barrington. We always see there's room for growth. So we continue to move forward. At the upcoming school board meeting, our curriculum director will be reporting out on the mid-year data. So we assess students in the fall, in the winter, and then again in the spring. So she's going to share out the winter data. So hopefully we'll be seeing some growth from the fall. So if you're interested, that'd be a great meeting to come on down or log in.
Okay, if you want to do a 1-minute closing to wrap up, you can do that.
No, I just want to thank everyone for coming, and hopefully thank you for your support for my candidacy, the school budget, the teacher's contract, and our other warrant articles. You know, we really did work hard, and I know the percentages are larger this year than they have been in the past, but we really worked hard to be as controlled as possible, given that many of the expenses are out of our control. And I just want to share that Carrie Neal was terribly disappointed not to be able to be here tonight, but she had a long-standing commitment that she couldn't change, or otherwise she would have been here. I don't want anyone to think her absence is that she doesn't care. She does, and was very disappointed that she couldn't be here.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Moira. And we'll invite the select board candidates to come up front. Just remind the audience that if you want to direct a question to one individual, you can, but we'll give everybody an opportunity to answer or comment, even if the question wasn't directed to them. So for the select board, we have 2 openings for a 3-year term. And we have 3 candidates for those 2 openings. We have Joyce Capiello, Rob Russell, and Alexandra Samako. So,
I'm loving it.
It's always nice to have some campaign music as we get started. We'll start with 2-minute statements from the candidates. And Joyce, you're alphabetically up first.
Hey. Hi, I'm Joyce Capiello, and I'm running for re-election. So this would be my 2nd time on the select board if re-elected. A little bit about me. I've lived here for 50 years, and I know that doesn't make me a Barringtonian native, but I sort of feel like one. I got married here. We raised our children here and have called Barrington our home for a long time. My professional background is I am a retired nurse practitioner. I taught nursing at the university. Why do I bring that up? Because in my work in healthcare, prevention was a key element for what I did. And I bring that to the town, and I call it at the town level preventive maintenance. An example of this is I sat here 3 years ago, and I talked about, we had just had a 10-day really cold spell, and the rec department had gone through an entire tank of oil, 600 or 700 gallons in 10 days. So that's a pretty energy inefficient building. So what did we do about it? We established an energy committee. So they've done audits on numerous buildings, and the audit they organized on the rec department building showed that it wasn't the roof as I expected. It was the wall, the one with the high glass. And so we set out to find a grant. We got a grant for $1 million. And the rec department has a little money to add into that. So that renovation will start this summer once the library moves out. Another area where prevention makes a huge difference is roads are our probably biggest financial asset and biggest cost in town. And if we keep on top of the maintenance of those roads with crack sealing, maybe it's 50 cents to $1 a square foot. But if we have to reclaim those roads because we haven't done anything to them, we're talking $8 to $10 a square foot. So we can save money by putting a little money in every year to take care of things in town. So that's a preventative piece that I bring to the select board. And I try to make decisions based on data and live within our means.
Okay, good, thank you. Rob?
All right, folks, Robert Russell, also have not lived here super long. May just have hit 20 years. My wife and I, Allison, have 2 daughters, 18 and 20. Age one is in high school. I'm sort of known in town for various reasons. I've had some issues with the town. I'm sorry. Make sure you're green now. Okay. Can I start again?
Okay.
All right. My name is Robert Russell. I've lived in town for, I think, 19 or 20 years. My wife and I, Allison, have 2 daughters, 18 and 21. One's at UNH and one is a senior in high school. I was just saying, a lot of people do know me one way or the other. I don't really need to go into a whole lot of background, but I did 27 years in the U.S. Army. I am a combat veteran of the conflict in Afghanistan. I'm also a fully disabled veteran. I own the little gun store on Toland Road called 2A Tactical. And also I do pet drone recovery. So I go all over New England. I help people find missing animals. And I help people find missing animals in Barrington for free. So it's part of a way that I give back to our local community. And I've done quite a few of those. I was also a police officer for 14 years and a paramedic for 19 years and an EMT for 3 years. So I've done a lot of public service and have worked for the government for most of my life. What I want to do primarily is what people are asking me, is that we need to cut down on our spending and we need to lower our property taxes. Those are not necessarily my ideas, although I still feel that way personally, but those are what people are telling me. I certainly have some ideas as to how we can do that, and I've put some of that on social media, but that is the biggest thing I think we need to do. I think the spending is out of control in this town, and I think we need to really tighten the belt up. So that is the primary thing I think needs to get finished and fixed.
Okay, thank you. Alexandra?
Good evening. My name is Alexandra Samako. I am the newest to Barrington of the people sitting before you tonight. I moved here in 2021, but I have also moved more than 20 times in my life, and I'm only 42. So nowhere felt like home until moving to Barrington. And over time being here, I have really felt compelled to give back to the community because it is the first place that ever felt like home to me. So I have gotten incrementally involved in things in the town. I've been sitting on the zoning board now for just over 2 years, and I have really enjoyed that work. I've participated in the elections. I am a member of the American Legion and the Auxiliary. I'm a Navy veteran, and I'm a product of the Navy Nuclear Power Program, which is significant because what that means is usually when you are an enlisted person in the military, your job is to follow, not to challenge. But because we're dealing with nuclear safety, you are taught to challenge, and I will challenge things that I don't agree with. But I also now am a practicing attorney, a certified mediator, and I specialize in high conflict. And when it comes to changing things or challenging things, you also have to have the right temperament to do that, because if it's just conflict, you're not going to get anywhere with it. So I would like to bring my variety of skills to the select board. And I think what we can do is we can better utilize the people that we have in town. We've got so many incredible people here, but the same people participating in so many different things. I would really like to expand the way that we can get more people, different people, younger people involved in things in town, and create a better dialogue between the select board and the people who voted them into office. Because, you know, we are here to serve you. We are bound by the things that you vote on. But I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect, and I would like to fix that. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. You all have good internal clocks tonight. They're almost right on 2 minutes.
It was accidental.
All right, so we have a great audience here tonight. I hope you have a bunch of questions for these folks. So we'll start with you. Go right up and introduce yourself.
Just make sure that light's green.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, candidates. Randall Heller. I've been a homeowner in Barrington since 2005. And each year, our personal property taxes go up. And a significant percentage of those property taxes go towards public education. And what concerns me is that there is an inverse relationship going on, not unique to Barrington, but across the country, in which the more money spent on public education, the lower the test scores. And that inverse relationship is reported in the press every year. It's documented, and it concerns me. And I realize that this is not your precise area of expertise, candidates, but I'd like each one of you to speculate, and I emphasize the word speculate, as to why that may be taking place and what you suggest that we do to address that problem. You can start with candidate to my right.
Sure. Thank you for your question. I believe that technology and overuse of social media has a lot to do with the attention spans that we're dealing with in children these days and the way that teachers can keep their attention in class. I do not have children. I have a niece, and I have watched her inverse development over time. She's 16 now. And I also work with children regularly in my practice. And this is an issue that creates a lot of conflict in families. And a lot of my parents that I work with are reporting back to me that they don't know how to regulate this. Teachers are trying to deal with cell phones in the classroom and social media and bullying. I think there's just so much distraction that we are creating a generation of kids that don't know how to focus. And if they're not focusing, then they are not processing the information that they're being given. So I think that what we need to do is find more and better ways to restrict that and to make sure that it's not in our classrooms.
Well spoken. Thank you. Rob, Russell.
I was also going to touch on the cell phone thing. I think cell phones don't belong in the classroom unless someone maybe has a sick parent or something. There could be an occasional exception for an emergency contact, but there's absolutely no reason. I've dealt with this exact issue with my daughters, and it is a problem. It's a huge problem. The other thing is, and I can't say for all schools, but we need to get things like home ec, the trades, these hands-on classes back in. I have very fond memories of learning how to cook and sew in high school. And I've talked to a lot of people who've said that these things aren't taught anymore. And these are critical life skills. So are how to pick up a hammer and nail and hammer something into a 2x4. And again, I can't speak for all schools, so I don't know what schools are doing this and what have removed these from them. But whether you're doing that or you simply take kids out into the woods and you do adventure, training, teach them how to make a fire, teach them basic things, that are, again, critical life skills. To me, you get them away from the electronics and you get them hands-on with things like that. I think that's really important. But I've been saying all this. I'm not an educator.
Understood. That's why I asked for you to speculate. Thank you. You're moving on.
Certainly this is speculation because we're here as a select board. It's a very different world than when we all went to school. And from what we know from national statistics, there's much more mental health issues that children bring to school, severe disabilities that we see that schools have to provide education at a high standard that perhaps that wasn't being provided at that level in the past, and those all require enormous costs and I think enormous time of teachers' attention in the classroom. But I also would like to bring your question back to Select Board, like how do we deal with the demands of a community and try to keep the tax rate as an affordable level? And as Barrington, I feel like we've done a pretty good job of keeping ahead of some of our services, looking at roads and police and emergency. And our tax rate is on the municipal side. Now, the municipal side, what we can control on that board is 17% of the tax burden that you get every 6 months. So 10% of that would be county, which is generally pretty stable, and the rest is school, so that's about 73%. And our tax rate here in Barrington on the municipal side is the lowest in the area. And we compare it with other towns, not cities, but towns. The only ones that have a lower tax rate are ones that don't have their own police force, so they have to use state police force.
I appreciate that very much. As an educator myself, I'm surprised that not one of you mentioned an evaluation of curriculum and perhaps refocusing more directly on the 3 R's of reading and writing and arithmetic, where the exams are primarily focusing. I would feel a lot more comfortable paying these high taxes if I saw an improvement in student performance, which I'm personally not seeing. At any rate, I thank you for your answers.
Okay, next question. Tracy.
Hi, Tracy Hardikoff, Stone Farm Road. My question is, at this year's deliberative session, was there a specific topic, comment, or idea that you heard that really resonated with you that you had not heard before that session from residents?
That I had not heard before. I have to think about that, but let's talk about some of the themes that did come out on that. Certainly, there's a lot of concern about preserving the rural nature of Barrington. I think people drive down the road and they look at the growth that's occurring in town, and it isn't the town that perhaps they grew up in, and that brings them concern about that. So some of the things that are happening at the planning board level around that are there will be one zoning ordinance that's looked at trying to improve the process of how developers would interface with the town land boards and through a 4-step process, because a lot of times the developers will come in and they have their idea. They spent a lot of time on their plan, so they want to move back from that plan if there's any pushback about how that actually fits in with the ordinances of the town. So this will allow earlier engagement with people who do any changes to their property in Barrington. And I think that actually will help with that dialogue. And the other piece that I think will be really important when developers come in with large subdivisions, they have to do what's called a yield plan. So you have to see how many house lots could actually be built on that lot. And then you can take that number and cluster them together and have some green space and some cluster of houses, which is how most developments are done in the town. But sometimes that yield plan is not as perhaps as strong as it could be. So there will be some looking at that to make sure that someone isn't counting on their yield plan something that's just way too steep that you couldn't ever build on. So trying to tighten up some of those kinds of things, because we do hear a lot of people talking about how the look of Barrington is changing.
That's pretty quick. I wasn't there. I was in Vermont helping a family locate a lost dog on a mountain.
So mine's a little bit different. There has been a lot of talk lately about the tax rate and how much the property taxes have gone up. But there was something that really resonated with me at the deliberative session, and that was coming from some of our department heads in town and talking about their frugality practices. I mean, I sat there and listened to Chief Walker talk about how they're changing out chassis on vehicles to make them last longer, and all of the things they're doing to try to avoid having to make these large purchases. Or Chief Joy, who I think I see in the back of the room, talking about how we were one of the first towns to adopt tasers, but now our tasers are nearly obsolete and need to be replaced. You know, I appreciate that, and I think that more people need to know how much effort is going into the departments across town to try to do what they can on an individual basis to keep the expenses low. And I think there's probably other places where we can put those practices into place that will affect in the long run that tax rate. But it really was significant to hear like, what's happening on such a small level around town.
Thank you.
Thank you. More questions? Frank?
I wrote these down to try to be quick. So since Fire Chief Rick Walker's name just was brought up, I do want to thank Fire Chief Rick Walker. I don't see him here tonight. Maybe he's listening online, for his many years of service.
Back there.
He is here. Hey, Chief. Congratulations on your retirement announcement. That being said, the next select board will have the privilege of hiring a new fire chief to oversee our incredible fire department and help keep Barrington safe. A position that could certainly be held for decades to come. I'd like to ask each of you, if honored to serve on the board, when it comes to interviewing and then hiring a new fire chief, will use the person's race, gender, or sexual orientation as a deciding factor in whom we hire?
Let's start with Rob on this one.
Okay.
Just try to mix it up a little.
Yeah, absolutely not. You hire based on merit. I mean, this is literally, I mean, you judge someone by their content, not the color of their skin. So you look at who they are, who is the best person for the job. And those other aspects that you listed off should not matter. And that's exactly how the select board should be acting. So if I was part of that hiring process, no, I don't care about any of that. You hire the best person for the job.
Alexandra?
Yes, I agree with Rob. Absolutely not. That's not something that should be considered. There are big shoes to fill, but I do think that we're looking for somebody who's going to be a good fit for Barrington, and that includes experience, the quality of the experience, the quality of their applicable skills, and just who's going to, you know, be a good fit for this town's vibe. You know, we are kind of an interesting place, and I love that about it, but we want to bring people in who are going to fit well and work well within the confines of what we're dealing with. So those things would not be considered.
Joyce?
So we started out first with a transition team because we know that Rick Walker has so much institutional knowledge that we want to make sure that that gets passed on. So we've already started to do that. The search has started for a police chief, and that language has gone out, and we are looking for anyone with good qualifications. And I understand that we've had quite a few applications, I think 20 plus the last time I heard. We're looking, in case there's someone that you know, we're looking for someone either to come in and stay here for a long time, or we would take someone who's willing to come in for, say, 3 years. Perhaps someone who's had a great deal of experience and would come in and, you know, just look at things and position us for the future for a longer term thing. And we will look at the best candidate.
Just want to remind candidates, remember to unmute your mic and get reasonably close to it. All right.
Just gonna leave that on.
We want the people at home to hear you. Okay. Any more questions from the audience? Matt?
Good evening, and Matt Down from Ayers Lake. Thank you for agreeing to run and sitting here tonight. As you may know, some people around me do, that I'm part of the Stratford Regional Planning Committee, and it's always exciting to me when I sit in those meetings and I hear Somersworth and Dover, Durham, you know, all of our catchment areas express all these grand plans and really taking good action on putting in infrastructure into their town so that they may never see it. It may be 20, 25-year plan, but these things get lopped off, and it's a good planning process. So my question to you is, can you describe the process that Barrington is going through, or you would like to see them go through, to start to build infrastructure such as the septic system possibly. And Barrington's going to grow inevitably, and so we need to start building for that day now. So I mentioned septic, but also playing fields for the kids, and eventually probably a high school. Could you describe the process and where you see that going on?
We can start with you, Joyce, since you're involved with that process.
Okay. During my time on the board, we've updated 2 master plans. So master plans are kind of like a vision for the community, and they take you into the next 10, 20 years. So if we look at, in 2007, the residents of this town said they wanted to have a center of town. So we're here in 2025. We did just purchase the 13 acres in the middle of town, which will become an anchor, and probably will remain an open space anchor. So sometimes it can take a very long time to get to that vision. But the master plans are really important as a way to set that vision. And we have about 7 master plans, I think, a big one, and then ones around housing, transportation, the one thing I know that planning board discussed this week, and just for the rest of you, on select board, we have liaisons with committees, and I started on planning board 3 years ago. They wanted someone who's new to the select board because it's a pretty great deal of a learning curve, so they wanted someone for 3 years. So I was ex officio on planning board, which means I am a voting member. And we were discussing whether we should do some master plans, or it ended up, we don't actually need to do this, what we want to do under a master plan, but we're going to be looking at septic regulations around our lakes. I mean, all of our lakes are experiencing stress. We have cyanobacteria blooms where people can't go in the water. You know, they pay high taxes in our community and would like to be able to access the water throughout the summer months, which are so fleeting and precious here. So we have agreed in general that we want to look at those septic guidelines around shoreline protection areas. So I think that's one of the things for the future. If you're asking if we're looking at sewer for town, we are not. I don't think we're there yet. We don't have that need yet.
That's time, Joyce. Thank you. Alexandra?
Sure. Thank you for this question. I appreciate the way Barrington has allowed people to give input for the master planning. I myself have participated. They made that very accessible. But I do think that we need to keep in mind that we are not necessarily going to be able to keep up with Dover and Somersworth and Durham. I'm also not sure that people in town want that, and that is echoed in the feedback that comes via that master plan process. So I think what we need to do is we can definitely be looking towards the future, and there are lots of things that are being done in town that are forward looking, but it has to be something that fits for Barrington. And I think we can keep those forward looking goals in mind when we are considering things like each year's new warrant articles. There are warrant articles that are up for a vote this year that, you know, if we're looking on one hand at trying to bring a sewer system into town, which I agree is not something that's on the table right now, if we are also spacing things out more, those two things don't go together. So I think we're always in the planning process as we're deciding which direction Barrington should be going. And the voices of the people have been heard through that master planning process, but just because we may not be looking at the same things as other bigger towns around us doesn't mean that we can't, you know, energetically and enthusiastically bring what works for us to the table and share it and discuss it at the regional planning level.
You're up.
I think most people in town do not want to keep up with Dover, Portsmouth, Somersworth, Rochester. We don't want to be that. We want to be rural Barrington, and we want to keep it as close to what we have today and even 20 years ago that we had. We don't need solar fields. We don't need sidewalks. We don't need a bunch of electric cars. We don't need a ton of athletic fields, okay? All this stuff, all it will do is drive up our taxes further. It's going to mean more infrastructure buildup, which means more maintenance, more employees. It is a constant battle with it's just a never-ending cycle. And this is the feedback I am getting from people. Okay, we don't need any of that. We need to tighten the belt, and we need to keep what we have. We're already gone too far. Okay, so as far as those things, absolutely not. I do not believe in any of that. We don't need to keep up with the Joneses, which is exactly what it is. We're already half screwed where we are now. So I'm a hard stop on all of that. We need a strong police force, a strong fire department. We need to keep the roads in good shape. Everything else is icing on the cake if we have the money. That's my answer.
Thank you. Anybody at home waiting? No?
Virtual questions yet.
Okay, so real questions then. Hey, Roger.
I think somebody wrote something in the chat. Connor, did they? Is that a question or? It was just that they couldn't hear. Oh, okay.
It is a question.
Hi, Roger Gingrich from Peabody Way. Just two quick comments relevant to the discussion that went on before. One is that I just finished reading Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. If you haven't read it, the answer to Mr. Hiller's question comes out loud and clear in that, at least in part, and you guys all hit on it, starting in 2007 when the iPhone first came out. Number two is my son and his family live in Ashland, Mass, right next to Hopkinton, where the marathon starts. Every time he comes up here, and Ashland is a beautiful little town, but every time he comes up here, he says, "You guys have the best roads in Barrington. I just love coming up to visit you. Thank you for doing that," kind of thing. My question, each of you have implied in certain ways that you're hearing from people. I heard from people. That carries weight in some ears and not so much in other ears. My question is, how do you envision a funnel of sorts being set up so that the people who talk to you are not in your echo chamber only, but have a free access to some kind of virtual or real input setting other than 3-minute comments in the select board meetings? Thanks.
Start with Rob.
Do you mean how would the select board members, what would be the catalyst to get us to questions? Are you saying other than them doing a face-to-face? Is that your?
Well, so Rob, what bothers me is when I hear people say, what I'm hearing is this. Well, that's meaningless information. That's not data. That's not a fact. That's not nothing. I want to know, how can I be assured that if I have something that you guys need to hear, that there's a place or a way in which that information can be given to you apart from the 3-minute public comment in select board meetings?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, when I came to town, all the select board members' emails, their individual emails were on the town website. Those are no longer on there. You used to be able to individually email every select board member. I don't remember when they came down, but you had all select board members, and right next to them you had their individual emails. I'm sure there's still a way to look it up somehow, but it was very easy to access and you could email them. Now it's one of the more generic, contact the select board. You don't know who's actually reading this. You presume it's a select board member. It could be Tiffany, it could be Connor. I mean, I don't know. I've sent a few emails to that over the years and didn't even get a reply. So it is, to me, a lot less personal. I think, as an example, those individual government town emails need to come back. I'm all for the generic email box, and I'm assuming goes to all 5, but I don't know. I don't know how the system works. You can send messages on Facebook, but again, who's actually manning that account? I don't know. So I think, for one, the individual emails need to come back. I think the 3-minute thing is such a travesty that when people come up with, it really goes back to when you literally had kings and people would approach the king with their issue and the king was supposed to help you and provide you relief. That is where this all comes from. That is the, literally where this whole setup originates. And to think that at 3 minutes, and I've gone in front of the select board and had people, they're just looking around. They don't give a crap what I'm saying. And I'm talking very politely. And I got to tell you, that 3-minute rule drives me crazy too. We need to start actually listening to our citizens, giving them more time. If they have something, a legitimate grievance, and they need more than 3 minutes, give them 4, give them 5. Don't practically yell at them when their 3 minutes is over, and and have them leave. So I just think you need to make the select board a lot easier to contact. And if you are going to physically come to a meeting and they need more than 3 minutes, you need to give it to them. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Joyce?
I hope that our emails are on the website. They always have been, and I do get emails from constituents. I feel like I
have your email.
I'm sure you do. I feel like I get more, there's more public attendance at planning board meetings, and I get more emails from people around planning board meetings than I do select board. I would love to see having more people attend select board meetings and just hear more from people. I wasn't on the select board when we instituted the 3-minute rule, but I do remember in one of my early select board meetings when Mr. Russell was invited to speak for 15 minutes, and an hour and a half later, he was still speaking. Now, when he finally left, we still had business to attend to. And one of the things we needed to do was an evaluation.
I wasn't given 15 minutes.
Well, maybe you were given 20, but you were not
given
an hour
a time limit.
So anyway,
I wasn't given a time limit, Joyce.
At 11:30 at night, I had to go out and get our town administrator because we needed to send him out. And I found my husband driving in because I'd forgotten my phone, and he was certain I was in a ditch somewhere because he couldn't imagine that a town meeting would go on for that long. And it was that we had a very long-winded ride that night.
Hey, Alexandra?
It was very important business to discuss.
Yes, and thank you for sticking to the time limit.
So this is something that's actually really near and dear to my heart. If you have received my handout, you'll see that there have been some comments on there because I think there's a time and a place for the 3-minute public comment. If you have something that you want to be taken on a broader level, or if we have a state representative that's attending a particular meeting and you want to share something, by all means. But I do think that there needs to be better access. And it's always a balancing act. This is a volunteer position. Yes, we're spending our own money to, try to get your votes, but at the same time, we're volunteers. And we have other obligations, but I do think that there needs to be maybe a more informal monthly meetup or something. I'm willing to brainstorm ideas. Social media is where I particularly have seen commentary from people who live in the town. We have about 1 million town Facebook groups. You can pick the ones that suit you best and avoid the ones that don't. But part of the question was getting outside your own echo chamber. And that's why it's been so important for me to not say, I'm when it comes to my personal political views, because I will listen to anybody and I will listen to you with empathy and compassion. And if it's important to you, I am going to give you my time. I'm going to give you my ear. And it's figuring out how to make that happen where it doesn't have to be at the 3-minute public comment. And maybe we can funnel the energy into a more structured comment once the initial back and forth has happened. There are ways to make that happen. I'm not sure that I have the golden ticket right this moment, but I am willing to figure that out and to listen to people even on how we might be able to make that happen. But again, it has to be a balancing act, something that is manageable for the volunteers that are putting themselves out here as well. And I will give my email address to anybody.
Thank you. Okay, more questions? Okay.
Everybody, Representative Len Turcott. I was talking with Joyce before the meeting on an issue that's near and dear to my heart. Last term in the House, I served as municipal and county chairman, and in that committee, we had a lot of bills that came before us regarding zoning and housing. My question, without getting into what happened or how I dealt with it, what I'd like to know from each one of you is what types of housing and/or zoning issues do you think the state should be doing a top-down type of mandate on municipalities with? And what types of zoning and housing issues do you think are best handled by local control? Thank you.
Okay, Alexandra?
That is a really excellent question. And I think that it really needs to be more bottom up and not top down because we know what's best for Barrington. And having sat on the zoning board for more than 2 years now, we see lots of things that definitely are in keeping with, the rural character that we're looking for and not trying to become adjacent towns. But we also see people bringing things to us that they want to do that definitely just aren't going to serve our needs. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have the power on the zoning board to deny things just because we don't like them. But I do think that we know what's best for our town. So while, we should definitely follow state laws, state zoning laws, we should be doing more of the zoning ordinance development on a local level because we know what works and what doesn't. We know what's part of our own master plan and long-term, we know where we've come from and we know where we do and don't want to go. So I think that it needs to be at a local level as much as possible.
You, Rob?
So I'll start by saying I am against most zoning rules for residential. I think zoning rules for business is generally important, especially anything involving safety. I think when it comes down to your personal residence, we need as little zoning and as least intrusive zoning as possible. But that being said, I agree with Alex on the concept that the town should be governing their zoning rules. If the state was to get involved in anything, I would think it would be zoning issues regarding First Amendment rights. I've personally dealt with some of that regarding signage when I was able to get one of our towns sign ordinances removed single-handedly with a very out-of-the-box method. So I think that when something is going to impinge on First Amendment rights, that is maybe the only area I would want the state to get involved. But other than that, I think it should be a town issue.
Okay, Joyce?
New Hampshire's had a long history of local control, and I think it's not going to take kindly to the state developing zoning laws that affect local communities. I know we have a housing shortage both here in New Hampshire and nationally, but I suspect that's not going to go well for Concord to say that zoning needs to occur at the state level and that we will not have the ability to create our own zoning laws.
Okay, thank you. More questions? Jack?
Jack Gale, Berry River Road. One of the items on the ballot for the voters is Article 3, requiring new lots move up to just shy of 3 acres for new builds. I'd like to know from each of you your position on this and then explain it, but not to most of the people out here who had our ticket punched and we live here. I'm betting a lot of us own and we're living the good life in Barrington. Explain it to a 22-year-old in housing-starved New Hampshire, how your position either helps or hurts them. Thank you.
Okay. Joyce?
Did you see me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. Thanks for that question. So 3-acre zoning was presented by one of the planning board members to the planning board this year. And it came from the perspective of wanting to keep Barrington looking more rural. That seems to be what a lot of people who come to planning board complain about. I was the only person on planning board who voted against it because I'm not convinced that that's the way to get to preserving some of the rural nature and the rural beauty of town. I think one way to do it with subdivisions, and I think that's when people's big complaint is the large subdivisions, and I think we can do that by increasing buffers. So right now, the Article 2 on zoning, which is the one before this one, talks about that four-step design. It also talks about increasing buffers so there's more distance from the road to where the first house could be. And instead of having these, long driveway and a cluster of houses, there would be more green space between houses. So there would be clusters of, generally we're thinking 4 houses, and then there needs to be green space and then another 4. So breaking that up. But we do need to keep in mind almost every subdivision that comes before the town chooses the conservation subdivision, which allows them to cluster houses together to keep open space. And I think sometimes that open space isn't visible so much to residents, but in all of those subdivisions are getting some open space. So we may not even have access to it because there haven't been trails built yet, because the Trails Committee is a volunteer group that would love more volunteers to help with trails. But it's there for wildlife quarters. So I think the town and planning board is always, looking at how do we manage this growth? How do we balance out the growth with conserving some land? And one way is to think about putting more tight housing in the center of town. So you could do that in we have these 5 zones, and it was really confusing. We have 5 zones in Barrington. So in the more the center of town, the village center and the commercial district, you could have more of your clustered
Time
housing
limit,
at that
Joyce, so
point.
save that for the next zoning question. Okay. Alexandra?
Non-conforming lots. So we already have a lot of non-conforming lots in Barrington, and if this passes the 3-acre minimum, we're going to have so many more, and those are already problematic. Those already create zoning problems for people. I would say more than anything else, what we see at the zoning board is people dealing with issues of non-conforming lots. I think, keep in mind that the way that our zoning ordinances are written, having a minimum of a 3-acre lot doesn't mean you're not going to see what's on that lot. It does not have to be that far away from the road. So by doing that, we're not necessarily keeping things rural looking. I do understand the motivation behind it, and I recognize that we are looking for ways to keep growth under control and manageable for our town resources, but also looking for ways to keep things looking more rural. I do think that what Joyce is mentioning, the conservation subdivision, is a better way to find, more trees and less development, because that's something that's getting abused. People can set aside, poor land that was never going to be developed anyway and say, okay, there you go, I'm conserving this, and here I'm going to put a bunch of houses. There are definite ways to do it. I don't think that 3-acre minimum lot size is the way. And I do think that given the cost of land in town, and I am a homeowner here, that's going to price a lot of people out of Barrington, and they're already priced out of so many other places. We're just shifting them further and further away. There are better ways to do this, but that is not the answer. And, land prices are just too much. Also, there is a trade-off with the property taxes. The more lots there are, the more people you have paying those property taxes and helping shoulder the burden of financing Barrington. So that's my answer.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay. I'd make it 4 acres. I've talked to quite a few people. We want to keep this town rural. Jack, you specifically asked, what would I say to that young person? I would tell them to work their ass off, save your money, don't spend it on a bunch of crap you don't need, don't buy a new car, invest, and eventually you'll buy a house if that's what you want. As far as your comment, Alex, about bringing in more homes to get more revenue, I think the much better answer is to be more fiscally conservative. So yeah, I'm all for it. 4 might be a little much, but certainly 3, I think would be a very good move. We don't need more homes here. Pretty soon, Route 125 is going to look like Route 108 in Dover at noon. And if you want that, great. I think most people here do not. So, yeah, let's keep the congestion out and let's increase the lot size.
Okay. I know there's more questions out there. I see them percolating. Okay, well, good thing you came, Frank.
All right. Ms. Samako, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
That's right.
As part of your platform, was that flyer you handed out the transfer station, you suggest that we can increase Barrington's voice on statewide issues by better utilizing the access the select board has to our state representatives. A letter posted online from about a year or so ago claiming to be written by then Chair Ms. Cappiello was sent to the House Election Law Committee urging them to support HB 1092, which I believe the purpose of that bill would have put greater restrictions on political signs on public property. In my opinion, it appeared from that letter your motivation for writing that was specifically to target Rob Russell, at the time your political opponent, and his political signs, which happened to be on his own private property on Route 125. So to all three of you, what are your thoughts on wielding that your authority as a select board member in such a way to affect change through Concord, but specifically targeting individual Barrington residents?
So if elected to the select board, anybody who sits on this board operates sort of in two different areas. There is your official duties and there is who you are as a private person. Anybody who's given online testimony to the state house regarding any of those bills knows that when you select what you are, you can choose elected official or you can choose, just voter, private citizen. And so I can't speak to the particular letter. I maybe have seen it online, but I cannot picture it at the moment. So, we retain the right to advocate privately and have to advocate publicly. It just depends on how you do it. If you are having direct private, citizen communications with your state representatives about things that you are personally concerned about, whether it's on a local level or regarding particular, national issues, you have a right to do that. It's just how you do it. And at the same time, when I say increasing and better utilizing the access we have to our state representatives, that is more in the public forum. By all means, there may be times where I, from my town email, which I do already have one for the zoning board, if I'm going to use my town email and I'm going to reach out to a state representative, that is me doing it in an official capacity. And I have an obligation to do that, not because of how I feel and not based on what I think about something, but what I am providing on behalf of the residents of Barrington. It's just, you just have to be mindful of how you are approaching it. But running for this board and being elected to this board does not take away your rights as a private citizen to express concern about things that you observe and things that you're concerned about.
Thank you, Joyce.
So this was about a bill that was trying to define not only when campaign signs should be removed after an election, because on state roads we did have that, but there was no articulation of when signs could or should go up before an election. And in this case, I did put online testimony as a select person in my official capacity that I would like to see parameters put for before, like how soon can the sign go up, as well as when it should be picked up afterwards.
Okay, Rob?
Well, so a couple of years ago, I put forward a warrant article where I was attempting to get a ethics policy, a conflict of interest policy for the select board, for the zoning board, for other boards in town. And it was voted down by the select board. This is exactly the kind of situation where, while Joyce did do this in her official capacity, because I am someone that Joyce and I have certainly gone back and forth over the years directly, okay? This would clearly be a conflict of interest for her to personally do this. There are other people she could have had bring this forward, but instead she chose to do it herself. Even her husband contacted the state, okay? And yes, he has every right to do that. My point is that this is why this town, as an example, is one of the only towns and cities in this area that does not have a code of ethics for our boards. which is remarkable. So you don't do things like that. If it smells wrong, it's wrong. And what she did was wrong. I would never, ever do something like that. In fact, if it's my opponent's sign, I would stand next to it, put my thumbs up, put a picture on Facebook, and say, hey, I may not like this person. I don't like that they're running or their thing, but I support that they have the right to run. She was literally trying to get my sign taken down. And they said it was triggering. People were threatened by it coming into Barrington because there was a photo of a veteran, a veteran on a poster. So it is a problem. So yeah, you don't do things like that because it's unethical.
Okay, I'll let you do a quick response, Joyce, if you want.
Okay, so I would respond to 2 points. So the select board and other officials in town take an oath of office, and that goes through the ethics part of it. So we thought it was redundant because we already take that oath of office. And the second part was I felt like I was representing many people in town. I have my inbox. That is the only time I got lots and lots and lots of concern was about the fact that after the election, so the election this year is March 11th, on March 12th, someone in town would say they were running again so they could keep their sign up 365 days a year. And residents, many residents were contacting us about that, just wanting parameters around that. Not saying that the sign shouldn't be there around campaign sign, but not wanting to have it all the time.
Okay, any more questions? Yeah, Tracy.
Tracy Hardikoff, Stone Farm Drive. On the Office of the Select Board page, I just wanted to be sure because I don't generally email myself. There are all 5 first and last names, the members, the titles, the term expiration dates, and all the way over to the, I'm directionally challenged, right-hand side are town emails. So Office of the Select Board, which is what you're all running
So
for.
each individual email is listed?
It is, sir.
There was a time I think they went off.
So I just wanted to clarify that because I don't want residents
It did disappear.
feeling, yeah, I don't want residents feeling that they can't contact us at any time.
Just to clarify, they did come off the website for a while.
Yeah,
Maybe you guys changed your emails. I don't know.
I don't know. I can't speak to that. So what I wanted to ask, and I think, Joyce, you maybe could go last on this, but what preparation have you done to sit on this board? Whether it's volunteer work that you've done directly with the municipality, meeting with staff, or viewing meetings, what the 150-page beautiful, I'm sorry, is it 150, 500 pages? The binder review, what preparation have you done for this position?
Start with Rob.
I'll start. Well, over the 3 years that I've been running, I have sat in and watched countless select board meetings. I have interviewed numerous town employees to find out what their jobs entail, one-on-one actual interviews. I've met with numerous members of the town and business owners, and not just by my just going out, but I've had more people than I can even imagine reach out to me in emails, on social media, show up at my shop. I have conducted my own investigation of the illegal, unlawful lawsuit that happened of my business several years ago, and I exposed a lot of corruption in this town. I've done my own volunteering in the town where I've assisted people with locating lost animals like dogs, which I do for free for any town resident. I don't know, I'm just kind of a good guy. I help people, you know, if I see somebody on the side of the road, I help them out or whatever. You know, so people think when they meet me, they'll say, you know, it's funny, you don't have horns or claws. I say, well, it's, you know, I just took them off. But anyway, yes, so I've done a good deal of preparation, Tracy.
Alexandra?
I suffer from chronic get involved. So I have been slowly getting my fingers into more and more things around town. I attend as many select board meetings as I can, not usually in person. I work odd hours, so I'm usually online. But I do try to listen and get engaged. I have come in person when I can. I have reviewed the master plan. I have been going to deliberative sessions for years, pretty much since I moved here. I also work the elections so that I can see, people coming through the door and chat with people. It doesn't matter who you're voting for. You're stuck at my door. Let's have a chat. So I also did sit down with Connor to, ask him more about the expectations. I have spoken to Tracy, Joyce. Actually, I think I've spoken in some capacity to every select board member about some aspect of what they're doing, and just really studied what it means to sit on any board in this town. I also have been on a board in this town for more than 2 years, because this is a big commitment. Don't step up for it if you're not ready to take it on. And I wanted to make sure that I was, because this was never the goal, okay? But you know what? Sometimes you just feel called to get involved in something, called to step up and bring your particular set of skills to the table. And that's what I've done, but not without starting kind of from the bottom and working my way through to observe everything and see how it all works together.
And Joyce.
So I think I voted in every town election for 50 years. I've probably attended most of the deliberative sessions, at least on the municipal side. Had, lots of acquaintances in town who served on select board and have conversations with them. And as I got to the point in my life that I had some time, I could consider thinking about doing this. I started to watch select board meetings. I talked to a number, as Rob did, a number of town department heads, and talked to Connor, and talked to lots of residents about what their concerns were.
Those were really thoughtful answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. More thoughtful questions? Rick?
Rick Walker, Green Hill Road. As everybody can see what's been going on in the state and feds, it's looking like there's a lot less federal money going to be coming our way in the next year or two. And it's also looking like there'll be less state aid coming down. Obviously, there's a fair amount of state and federal aid that come into the town that help defray taxes to a degree. How do each of you propose to, assuming that we're going to lose money and it's going to have to be on the backs of the taxpayers, how do you propose that you would rein the spending in to limit big jumps in the tax rate?
Joyce?
Sure. As Chief Walker alluded to, we've had a pretty good run of getting grants to fix some of our big structural problems, so big ticket items. Last year was the Green Hill Bridge. That was over $2 million that cost. This year we're going to fix the Lakeside Oaks culvert, which is a problem if we have heavy rains and Swain Lake overflows, then we have flooding, and that's over $600,000 to fix. And we brought money in for that. I can list them all, but we're doing design work on Pond Hill culverts. So in some other places, so that when there are grants, we're shovel ready to go. Because if we're not ready, then we can't do that. And I think we're all very nervous about what this is going to mean for the town coming forward. Because without those federal grants, which then flow into the state, we know we're going to be looking at tighter budgets, I think. And it is going to mean we're going to have to put off fixing some of the things in town. I still think we need to do that preventative work on our roads to keep on top of those so we're not paying more later. But it may take longer to fix some of the big projects in town. I think that's the reality.
Okay, Rob?
I'm not a big fan of grants. People refer to them as free money, and it's absolutely not free. Our town should be able to handle our expenses on our own anyway. If we occasionally get a grant, then fine. But we rely way too much on them. As far as what the future is going to hold, if we don't ever assume we're going to get grant money, then that's how we should operate. As far as tightening the budgets, as I said earlier, the three things that are most important in my mind are a strong police force, fire force, and you keep the roads in good shape and the road maintenance. Everything else is extra. You get rid of all non-essential employees in town. Wherever there's old wood, people that aren't picking, pulling their weight, they don't need to be here. We don't have the money to be a charity and keep people employed to go find a leaky faucet and call a plumber. Okay, so to me it's very simple. It's not difficult. And if there are extra things that we have voted in or big projects that we've started and now we simply can't afford to complete them or maintain them, then they go on the back burner because we can't bankrupt the town just because we have these grandiose fantasies and now all of a sudden this gravy train is not showing up. It's just a reality. It's no different than how you would budget your house. If you have to get rid of Disney Plus, you get rid of Disney Plus. All right. So yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
Alexandra?
Nothing against Disney Plus.
So luckily, the way that things have been managed for the last few years, we do have the ability through the work of, the town administrator and the finance department to kind of predict what we know might be going away. If you were at the deliberative session or you reviewed any of the presentation, you'll see that forward looking, we have an idea of what at least state funds we're going to be losing. That we need to be diversified. I think grants are still very good. Not all grants are to do, some grants are to plan. We also need to have better communication with the voters. There was maybe 40 people at the municipal deliberative session listening to what was going on. Hopefully more people reviewed it online, but perhaps if we could get more information out there, voters would not, just mark things without really knowing what the implications are. So just making sure that we have really informed voters and planning ahead that might involve shifting things around. But again, the board does not have necessarily the unilateral ability to move things around. Some of this is going to involve a dialogue with the voters. Maintaining a policy of frugality is also going to be really important. But hopefully we can still continue to get grants because that takes just a little bit off of the shoulders of the voters. And I think just the long-term planning, trying to anticipate where things are going to be lost so that we can get ahead of that is going to be the most important thing.
Thank you. You had a question? Okay. Yep.
Hi, my name is Donna Masucci. I live on Nipple Court here in Barrington. First of all, I want to really appreciate all of you running for select board. I'm sure that you're deeply concerned and can care about our community. There is one thing I do want to ask. Am I allowed to ask one candidate?
Yeah, but the others will get a chance to respond as well.
Okay, not to this question, but anyway. So Bob.
Yes.
My dear Bob.
I kind of knew this was coming.
I think I'm not going to put other people involved, like the man in the past said, using, people have talked to me. Nobody has talked to me, right? So this is my own.
Oh, you can ask me anything you want.
No, I'm going to ask you. So they have concerns about certain decisions that you've made and actions you've made in the past. And we know what they are, the signs, the Facebook explosion, downrating people. Well, things that you have. I mean, we can go on to many, but we're just, yeah, just about not saying nice things about people in the town administrating, not just Connor, but, with.
What specifically?
What? Okay. Let's just do the sign, okay? Because I only have a certain amount of time.
Well, yeah, ask it as a question.
Okay, so the question is, I'm curious how you are going to reflect on what has happened in the past in similar situations differently in the future. So basically, we've learned from the past. We always learn from the past. I've, 20-year-old, I'm out to conquer the world. I have my business. I don't care that you're not. I don't care that you can't pay me get out of here, you kind of learn as you go, like, oh, that didn't work. How can I soften that? So that's basically what I'm going to say. How do you plan in the future to demonstrate a positive change working with the administrator and the town? I know, Bob, I know that you love the town. I do. I truly do. And this is not an attack on you, but I have to know personally how you plan to conduct yourself and present this town in a positive manner if something doesn't go your way.
Well, first of all, it's not about going my way. It's about going the right way.
Okay.
I'll start with that. And as far as some of the things that have happened to me and my business and people I love in the past, what will I take from that? Whatever is in my power to make sure it never happens to a citizen in Barrington again. That no one in this town will go through what my family and what my employees went through three and a half years ago. So just to be clear, it's not about revenge. It's not about me, getting back at any of these people. It's about making sure going forward that nightmare doesn't get inflicted on a small business owner, a family, people just minding their own business, just trying to earn a living, disabled veterans just trying to work out of their house when it wasn't a big deal and when they were zoned correctly. So it's about trying to go forward and honestly protect people and help people, which is what I've done my whole career, what I do.
In a positive way.
I'm outspoken and I cut to the chase. I'm not one to mince words, okay? Some people are. I've told people, if I get on the select board, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to do a job. And I want to be very clear about that. It doesn't mean I have to be a prick in the process. It doesn't mean I have to use bad words or mean words or insult people. But sometimes the things I will say may be difficult for people to understand, and they may get offended in the process, or they may take it wrong. And it is what it is because I am who I am. So, I am wired a certain way. God made me a certain way. And, that's why when I put out on Facebook, I just listed who I am. And some people said some nasty things, and that's perfectly fine. I don't take any offense to it. But I hope that answers your question. And I appreciate the question.
Well, I appreciate you answering me. One more question to the whole thing.
Well, that was a long question. So I
Okay.
think,
Okay, I'll come back.
Let the other candidates comment if you wish to. Either of you?
Sure.
Joyce?
So what I aspire to bring to the select board is a professional demeanor and engage in civic dialogue where we hear different points of view and we're able to, calmly talk about that and acknowledge our differences and find areas where we agree on.
Alexandra?
I think what it takes to be successful and make Barrington successful is to consider the temperament of the people that you are voting for. It's possible to be outspoken without being confrontational. It's possible to advocate for the town without including at all your personal agenda. So I just think that it's really important to consider because we're all lifelong learners and we can all learn from where we've been to better where we're going. And that applies to what we do in a municipal civic capacity and personally as well.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question, particularly somebody that hasn't, is there anybody that hasn't asked one that would like to? Lindsay hasn't had a chance.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Maziars, 64 Gracie Way. I've been a homeowner in town since 2012. My question is for all of you, but Mr. Russell, you just stated that if elected, one of the ways that you would, be fiscally responsible would be to cut people that are working in our community. I've been involved in lots of committees in town and lots of town projects.
I said
And
non-essential
can I
employees.
finish my question?
I'm
So my
clarifying
question,
my statement.
my question to you is who will be cut? What parts are the not, you said police and fire, so does that mean anyone who's not police and fire and road management, those positions are gone? Non-essential, I guess, what does that mean to you?
The people we cannot afford to keep on. That is the answer. As we don't get these grants, as we have to tighten the belt, as we've already discussed, There are people have overlapping responsibilities.
So can you
that are-
tell me who those people are? Not by name, but by position? Just so that we're aware of
I'll tell you a
who
couple
we're going to
people. The
lose.
facilities manager, he's
Okay.
got to go. He is a completely overlapping
The
position.
facilities manager of,
The town,
okay,
okay? So there's 60 grand in our pocket,
Mhm.
and I could keep naming them.
that would
So
be, I think that people want to know if we're going to cast our vote.
what I'm explaining is that I would do a thorough look through of every employee. I would physically go to all the departments and actually observe these people and see them working and talk to people and find out, are there overlapping responsibilities? Because again, the town of Barrington's not a charity. We're not here just to give people these
Absolutely
hold
not.
on, I'm answering, to give people these government jobs that they just assume that they get for the rest of their lives. And, you know, typical government employees, you'll hear them say, I can never be fired. I've got this job forever. I know amazing, outstanding government employees. I was one for a long time. I knew plenty of great ones. I knew plenty of lousy ones. Some of the laziest people I've ever known have been government employees, and some of the best people I have ever known have been government employees. Okay, I am certain in this town of 300 plus employees, there are a lot of savings we could have. So yeah, what I'm saying is the police and fire and the roads to me are the priority. So if there's areas that most likely you won't have cuts, those are the places I would look least. Obviously, I'm one vote out of 5, but I'm just telling you how I feel.
Alexandra, any comment?
I think that a town of our size is only as strong as the people we have doing the work on the ground. It is important to have good employees. I have not been going around, inspecting the work of the individual town employees. I have worked in numerous capacities with various people that work in this building here and found them all to be, professional and dedicated to what they do. These jobs don't pay that much, especially in the context of the cost of living we're dealing with right now. If we had someone in town who was not pulling their weight for the job that they're being compensated for, absolutely we need to reconsider if that person is the right fit for that job. But we're working with not a whole lot here. 300-ish employees for a town of almost 10,000 that is maintaining what we're maintaining. We need people. We need good people. So I don't have any immediate plans to go through and in any slash and burn capacity. But of course, if individual situations arise, we don't need to be paying people if they're not pulling their weight.
Hey, Joyce?
Sure. First of all, when we talk about grant funding, we've been using grants to fund infrastructure, bridges, culverts, roads, those kinds of things. Our positions are budgeted within our budget. So if we don't go after a grant, we're not going to lose an employee because that's not how we pay them. And also in terms of paying our staff well, currently we've been we have not been able to fill positions in the police department. We've had a position open for most of this year. We are not paying what other communities are paying at that police level, and we're having difficulty attracting people. When we lose people and have to hire new people and onboard them, that's costly. I don't know if you can fact check me, Chief Joy, but I think you said at a recent select board meeting that with a new hire, it takes about $50,000 to get them to the level of a sergeant. That's a lot of onboarding time. New police officers have to do a lot of training, and maybe more so than other positions, but all our positions require training. So we want to keep employees that are working well. And I depend on the department heads and the town administrator to really know what's going on in their departments and to take care of those. We have had issues come to the select board from the town administrator telling us, advising us of what's going on. But those department heads are doing very well at managing their departments. I would not want to impose myself on a department without, that would assume I didn't trust my department heads. And I feel like we have very skilled department heads who know what's going on. And I trust them.
Thanks. It's about 8 o'clock, and just before we have our 1-minute closing statements, I just want to thank you all for showing up. This is probably one of the best crowds we've ever had for a candidate forum. I want to thank Connor McIver for doing the high-tech stuff of making this appear in people's homes. John Cafaso for keeping time, because I always forget to. So he's great at that. So and thank you for the candidates for spending your evening here and letting the community see who you are. So let's do a 1-minute wrap up, and we can start with Rob.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you, everybody. First of all, I'm just going to say I fully support Joyce and Alexandria for running. There's 3 of us sitting here, and 2 of us are going to end up on the select board unless someone gets a massive write-in. The select board members are going to come and go. What doesn't come and go is this town. Okay, so we have a town full of, just under 10,000 people. And that is the living, breathing thing here. It's not the government. It's not the buildings. It's the people here. And that's what matters. And we always have to remember that the government is to serve the people. It's not the other way around. And that is the key thing. And that's the key thing I believe. The people are the master of the government and not the other way. And I think sometimes the government forgets that, actually. It happens a lot. My take on a lot of this is different than Joyce's and Alex. And I'm even going to say something here. If you're going to vote for one of these 2 ladies, I would vote for Alex, only because I've known her for not very long. Her and I haven't particularly got along, but I actually think she's a pretty decent person. I don't think Joyce is a bad person, but if you got to vote for one of us, I'd vote for her, aside from me. So I want to thank everybody, and everybody have a great night. Thanks. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
So I just endorsed you.
Alexandra?
Like I said earlier, this was never the goal, but that doesn't mean that I am not motivated to serve you and everybody else in Barrington with integrity, with honor. And, that means just putting myself out there, making myself available. I have not been on the select board. I'm not going to sit up here and give you the perfect answer, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to study. I'm willing to put in the effort. I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and get into this town, figure out how we can make it better and keep the great town that we have for the people that are here, and making sure that the people that are already here are getting what they need from their town government. This is not about coming into the select board and imposing my will and my opinions on you. It's about listening and making sure that I am making decisions in the best interest of Barrington. And I think I can do that.
Thank you. Joyce?
My vision of municipal government is that it should just hum along in the background of residents' lives. The snow should get plowed, the roads are taken care of. If you need emergency services, it's there. If you need police services, it's there. And there should be no drama about that. Our job is just to make things work for you. You heard me say I do believe preventive maintenance is key. I want to run an efficient government. I want to use data to make decisions. But there's another aspect of what makes communities healthy that we haven't talked about tonight, and that's more the social fabric of a community. And you can't quantify that on the spreadsheet. But there are things in our town that I think do a very good job of this. So we have a rec department that has all kinds of classes to keep bodies healthy. The rec department runs before and after school programs and summer camps to really help our working parents in town. We've got the BYA to keep kids, so they have something to do. They're staying out of trouble. The library not only provides books, it's got all kinds of classes to bring people together to engage with other people. The Conservation Commission in town, just a couple seconds, please,
Okay.
Has preserved 20% of our town for out of development. We've got trails committees that are trying to get more trails into that land so we can actually access the beauty of that land. And we also take care of veterans in our town. We have the maximum amount of tax exemptions and credits for veterans and disabled veterans in this community. So I want a lean, cost-effective, transparent government, but just no drama, just everything working as it should. So thank you for coming here. This is a great example of democracy, and I look forward to seeing you at voting day on March 11th, and I hope I can earn your vote.
I just want to remind everybody. We want a good turnout on March 11th. Tell your friends, remind everybody, they have to show up. Thank you for coming.